I'm just
It's simply.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, you're freezing up. If you can hear me, yeah. Basically, the decision was made to play Sites tonight purely because he had two very good games, and we had two shutouts, and he was a big part of those two shutouts. So it was just a reward to him for his performances. And Bill had a very good week of training. His mentality was um, great, and he looks sharp. And I certainly could have gone with Bill. We know what Bill offers, and but when a goalkeeper comes in and has two shutouts, and is a big part of it, that I think it's a bit unfair to put him on the bench. Bill will get another week of training this week, and we'll go from there. But he's looked fine. He's looked sharp, and he mentally he seems like he's in a very good place for us.
Great. We'll go to Steve Goff again. Steve, go ahead.
Hey Ben, are you concerned at all about the morale of the team, the mentality, as some of these games pile up and we get deeper into the season?
As a coach, I'm always worried about your team's mentality and morale and trying to pick them up when on a day like this where you feel a little bit like we deserved more, and we're still searching for the goals, and so yeah, always concerned with that. You're always taking that temperature, but I've been around enough to hopefully keep the morale somewhat high, and but it's okay if we're pissed off and we're upset because we're not in a great spot right now as a group. But we also still have to be realistic and understand that there was some positives out of this game. But we also have to point out some of the negatives and get better and try to improve and finish off some plays and get a little bit more scary on offense and continue to try to be the team that can put up shutouts. But we'll be okay. We'll get back to work, and we got 12 games left. MLS is a long season, and if we can right the ship a little bit. But again, we've lost 1 and 3 in the last 3, so you also have to keep that in mind, Steve. We won a week ago, and we tied on the weekend, and we lost a home game where we played pretty well, missed some chances, and they capitalized on theirs. So we'll get back, and we got Toronto coming in, a very good team. So we got a lot of work to do.
We'll go to Jason Anderson next. Jason.
Ben, obviously you changed the formation tonight. What specifically went into playing out of a diamond, and how do you think the group did with that change?
I thought we played really well. I think adding the extra forward up top helped and caused some trouble with them. As I said, I didn't, that relationship can obviously get better between those two. And I think at times you could see that when they do connect and play off of each other and be a little bit more complementary rather than just both playing as a 9, essentially. I think it can be really effective. The decision to play the diamond was to really deal with their traditional numerical advantage that they put centrally, right? They put the field in half, and we talked about this last week. They squeeze the field, and so the diamond gives us a bunch of guys in the midfield to deal with those duels and pick up second balls. And then the 4-back situation, we have outside backs healthy for the first time in a while. We had Chris Adoy, who I thought had a pretty good night. Fisher and Joseph Mora. They've all 3 been healthy for the first time in a while. So having them available for selection, we thought it was the right blueprint for them to go against them. And then we find out in pregame that they went with a 5-back. We anticipated some type of wrinkles, but we didn't anticipate a 5-back. But I thought we adjusted before the game, and we stuck to what we were going to do, and the way we pressed them, I still thought was really effective. I didn't think they were very dangerous out of run of play for most of the night until we got stretched and pushed the game. The set piece obviously hurts, but yeah, again, first half I thought the structure was very good, and then we make some subs and we're pushing the game, and it gets a little haywire. But down the stretch, it wasn't great.
We'll take one more question. We'll go to Jimena. Jimena, go ahead.
Coach, can we expect to see more of Abu in the starting lineup?
When I look at that group tonight and I look at performances, Abu stands out as one of the better players on the field. I thought Junior Moreno had one of his best nights. So there's some of those positives. Yes, you can anticipate Abu playing more minutes. I thought he was, again, very, very sharp on the ball. He breaks lines better than some other options that we have in there. His passing it really helps us. And so, yes.
Great. Thanks, Ben. That's all we have.
All right, that's Ben Olsen tonight, and we apologize again for missing the first portion of Coach's press conference tonight. Sometimes the best laid plans just go to waste here, and that was that was us tonight, prepping the show ahead of time. But you could also say the same for DC United tonight. They came out really looking probably the best, at least in my mind, all season for the first 20 minutes or so of the game, and yet here we are on the wrong side of a 2-0 result.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think that what Ben said was interesting. He kind of doubled down on the fact that this team deserves a little bit of credit for how they're playing right now. I know that we were tweeting about the pregame press conference. He had a quote that said, that we'd gotten the shutout, we'd gotten the point, and he thought the team deserved a lot more credit for that. And I think that he doubled down on that tonight. And he was, obviously we didn't get any points out of tonight, but he kind of said that we've gotten 4 points out of 3 games and that people should be happy about that. Which I thought was a little bit surprising.
Is it? Ben Olsen's done that to us a few times now. The Cincy game is like, oh, you guys aren't happy? You got a playoff spot. Look, you guys always come back with this optimism. I admire you guys for it.
I'm a little bit less optimistic today.
I think. Look, this isn't it's not a good result at all. They don't have a coach right now, and they still beat us. But I think DC United fans are getting pretty tired of this. Like someone in the comments just said, even our ties and wins feel like losses. Because I don't know, it's we were talking during the game. You have to play good or win, and it feels like we can't really either get one of those or both at the same time.
Yeah, and part of what we were saying was that Ben Olsen has never promised pretty soccer, which I think was a little bit when we did get that win against Red Bulls last time. That was kind of some people's complaints is like, well, it wasn't pretty soccer. Like I'm waiting to watch pretty soccer. And that's never something he's promised. He's always said that we're going to grit out the games. But now we're not even really doing that. And like I said, like I feel a little bit more pessimistic this game because I thought that we came out in the first half and we looked a lot better. I thought we were playing much better soccer and we had it in their offensive third a lot more. And I think we had more opportunities and then they just got 2 goals that we just were not marking on, which was really frustrating. And we couldn't pick our heads up and kind of get one back and answer their goals.
See, for me, I was a lot more positive on the way that the game went today. Obviously, you never want to see a 2-0 result, and it's frustrating. Looks like we're about to switch over here shortly, but you see Ben come out in the press conference, very similar to how he was when he was a player and the way that you see teams.
Looks like we got a question, so I'm going to switch it over.
Yeah.
All right.
You changed formations tonight. How do you think the group did playing out of a diamond, trying to have more of the ball and having more numbers?
Yeah, like you saw, I think we had the ball, we had the possession, but in the end we lost the game. So we have to find the right balance right now. We didn't have the ball last 2 games, and we get points. And today we had the ball and we had nothing. So. Yeah, it's like that. It's the soccer, but in the end, like I said, we have to find the right balance. When we have the ball, defending the box, set pieces, and be ready when we don't have the ball, you know. And yeah, today is a disappointed result because I think we did well, especially when we had the ball, the first part of the field, back for midfielder. And I think we have to work a little bit more up front, the automatism and with the new guys who's coming. But I think we are in a good way. I hope.
Thanks, Fred. We'll go to Jose Umania next. Jose, go ahead.
Fred, how concerning is it for you about with the team losing these opportunities, mainly on set piece opportunities, the first goal coming off that free kick? How concerning is it for you as a center back that the team keeps letting in goals on set pieces?
Yeah, normally is our strength. We didn't concede too many goals with the set pieces during the last, I will say the last 2 years. And sometimes it's like that, you know. The line was not very good. I tried to talk with my teammate, but we took too much time for me, and we were not very well organized for the set pieces. So and we concede. It's like that, you know. It's the high level. We have to be ready all the time. When it's a free kick, you have to set the line very quick and be ready to compete for the ball. And we didn't do that when we conceded the goal.
We'll go to Emily Olsen next. Emily, go ahead.
Fred, thanks for taking the time. This officially kind of ends phase one of the return to this part of the season. How would you describe the feeling in the locker room around the team right now following these set of games?
Like you can imagine, it's tough right now. It's not easy because the last 2 games we didn't enjoy. We defend very hard. We get points. And we wanted to add something today. We wanted to take care of the ball, do a game more enjoyable. But in the end, we have nothing. So, like you can imagine, it's hard. We have to talk with the teammate right now, and we have to keep our heads up, stay positive, keep working hard, and get some results, you know, because the standing is very tight right now. Everything is possible, but we don't have too much time to get points. So we have to stay positive and keep the heads up.
Thanks, Fred. I'll pause for 5 seconds, see if anyone else has any questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Fred.
As DC United's, I believe, wearing the armband again tonight, Captain Frederic Briant with Steven Birnbaum missing out again. Listen, we've obviously got a lot to unpack here. That will wrap tonight's media availability. Just Fred and Coach Olsen. So guys, let's pick up where we left off. You know, what do you do differently? Because here's the problem I have, and I think this is where I'm starting to get frustrated with, you know, some of the comments we're seeing and some of the stuff I've read throughout the week. You know, folks in the fan base are upset and rightfully so with, you know, coming out against New York City, defending for our lives, holding on to get a point, earn a point, but obviously not even taking a shot, right? That's frustrating. That's hard to swallow.
Yeah.
That was not the game plan tonight, obviously. You know, we came out on the front foot. They spent a lot of time in the attacking third.
We had opportunities.
They created opportunities. They looked probably the best on offense I've seen all season. They couldn't string it together. They don't look comfortable by any means with the ball, probably because they haven't had it much this season. And you lose. So what do you want to do? We've proven we can defend well and get 4 points out of 2 games, or we can attack fairly well and not convert and get no points. Where do we go from here, right? Because, you know, I think a lot of the frustration is just in general, and nobody's got really a plan. So yeah, what's the plan?
I think we've seen it go back and forth. I see people saying you put the ball in the net, and it's obviously, yes, you want to score. I would wish they would score 10 goals a game. You guys good?
Yeah, go for it.
But you can't complain, oh, the defense is so boring and we're tired of just absorbing shots all day. And then when they try to be more offensive, and the defense blows out, it's understandable. Yes, I want both. I want an offense and a defense, but
yeah, and I get what you're saying, but it wasn't the 2 goals we gave up today were not a question of the defense was not in a formation where they could handle it. It was a failure of the defense to execute, especially on that first set play. You had a guy running free and defenders basically running opposite direction from him. That's going to happen if you approach a set piece like that, even if you have all 10 people at the back. So I don't know if it's necessarily a question of how they were set up. Certainly they looked better going forward, and so I do have questions about that. But all in all, I did think we looked like we had some threats. We had some opportunities going forward. Certainly unlucky not to end up in the back of the net, and it could have gone very differently. I enjoyed watching this game a whole lot more than I enjoyed watching the NYCFC game, even if it is a point lower.
I was going to say so much as I'd rather see the team play this way than they did at Jersey. I didn't like the way the team played at Jersey, even though they stole 3 points. I thought it was super unreliable to play like that, and today they played a you could build off of what they did today. You cannot build off of what they did against NYC or Red Bull the first time. I think you can build off what they did today. They had some missed chances. Gressel needs to put that in the net every time, and the 3 other runners behind him.
I mean, just the opportunities you saw with the 2 strikers on the field, the number of times that you had balls coming in to people who were actually there to receive it, even if the ball didn't end up getting there, there were a whole lot more productive chances. And we were joking during the game about the team, going forward and then coming back and recycling the ball, which certainly saw plenty of. DC actually controlled possession for the most part. But there were also those chances that we have not seen in a while. So definitely something to look for there.
Yeah. It feels to me like the frustration of, the offense started to look more coherent tonight, and I get they didn't score, but then you took 2 steps backwards on the other side of the field, and it's like, oh my goodness, like what? Why can't we pull it all together? We have a text here from Donald that says, look, not playing pretty soccer is fine if you're consistently getting results. Yeah. Today we had a scoreless first half for the 14th straight match. That's 1 away from an MLS record, which is crazy. And we keep having matches with very few shots and chances. At a certain point, the club has to accept that this brand of soccer is not working and overhaul it. And that point probably came a few seasons ago, but now we have to face it and change it. So that's from Donald on the text line. And, of course, if you want to join the show and share your thoughts with us, you can do so by either calling or texting us at 202-892-6328. That's 202-892-6DCU. And, of course, we've got a number of comments we'll try to get to in the YouTube chat as well as on Twitter. So thoughts, guys, on what Donald has to say?
I think that's pretty accurate, right? Like, the stats don't lie. If that's 1 away from an MLS record, like, that's pretty hard to hear. I didn't know that beforehand. But I think that's why I'm more frustrated in this game, because you could tell that the game plan was to go and get goals. Like, I have been hopelessly optimistic maybe for the past few shows, watching that we had a game plan of just sitting back and absorbing the pressure, and then maybe we'll get a chance or 2, but we're just at least going to get something out of these games. And that's why last game I thought that we didn't play a good game. It's not something that I would hope that we would replicate, but I think that we did what the coaches wanted, and we did get the result that the coaches wanted. So I had a lot more positive to say about that, but this one, it was clear that we were going to get those chances, and we were going to make it difficult, for New Jersey, and we didn't do that, which is more frustrating to me because, there was the Gressel shot, Kevin had a few, there were several runners in the box and it just kind of went over. I think we had more chances in this game, and I'm upset that we didn't make it a little bit more difficult for them.
Yeah, and to Joshua's point, this is not a Red Bull team that we've looked at in the past and said, this is a team that's going to win a Supporters' Shield and then find a way to flame out in the playoffs. This is not a good Red Bull team. They do not have a coach right now. They're kind of in between formations. They don't really know what they're trying to do out there.
Goal scorers.
We were saying during the game, they were basically out there and told, go play soccer. And it paid off for them because they got the 2 chances on 2 breakdowns by DC. They were not wonder goals by any means, but certainly things that you would expect the defense to hold up better on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's funny seeing these comments, and there's always a spark when teams change coaches, and I've for a long time on this show, I'm still not sure that I think that's what needs to happen and the only way to fix this, but you do wonder, like, is Olsen out of ideas with this team? I mean, I don't think offensively tonight he is. I think it showed that we can still do things, and I think we're getting closer. We're building. I don't know, but
today's lineup with the 6 people that we have out in. You put Flores, Areola, Canales, Birnbaum in that formation, and they probably win 2-0 instead of lose 2-0.
Yeah.
I think.
No, I agree, and I think that it's hard. Think about it on the flip side. If you just talk about any general soccer game, if a team is dominating and then the keeper, they get 1 or 2 shots on goal and the keeper lets them in, you're like, oh, that keeper was a little bit cold. They haven't had a lot of opportunities. I would argue that DC United is experiencing that on the flip side, whereas we haven't been getting a lot of opportunities. I mean, it was very clear last game when we had no shot on goal, and then it was very clear for the pregame press conference. If you all follow us on Twitter, you saw our thread about that. And the players were a little bit frustrated that there weren't a lot of offensive opportunities in that last game. So
mainly
I think
Assad, who didn't get into the game until late now.
Well, Fish didn't like it either.
He didn't, and he's a defensive player.
But yeah, at least he's a defender.
but I think that's probably felt within the team, right?
Sure,
like, it's not hard for me to imagine that the entire team kind of feels that way, because it is hard to play a game like that. Like, speaking from experience, it's just hard to defend for 90 minutes. That's not a promising place you want to be. So I think that this game, like, yeah, we had a lot of shots forward, but maybe we're like not super used to building up, and we did make a lot of jokes about how you can see that we have like momentum going forward, and then we recycle the ball back a little bit, and we kind of like wait for those like really obvious opportunities, and we saw a little bit more creativity this game. But I don't think the team is really comfortable with the creativity right now.
I mean, look, you got a midfield. Name our starting midfield from the beginning of the season. It wasn't Paredes, Abu, and Moreno. Moreno was there, but the other 2 are new, and it's not surprising. I thought they both did really well. I thought they were probably the best players on the field for DC United tonight. But it's understandable that they don't have chemistry with the brand new striker that just came in, and wingers that don't normally start for this team.
So I would argue, just playing the counterpoint, like, wouldn't you argue that they deserve a little bit of time to figure it out? Like, isn't that what these games are? I'm not saying that these games are acceptable by any means. I'm just saying, like, from what you said, we have a lot of new players coming in. They deserve the time to figure it out, right?
Yeah, I don't want to dwell too much on the state of DC United. I feel like we've been doing that every time. I agree, but from the fan perspective, we've been waiting for a decade for this team to figure something out, and we got very little playoff wins out of that.
And I agree. We have beat the state of the club to death, and we will continue to talk about it. When you look at a game like today, where you did have some opportunities going forward, I think it also comes in the context of these other games we've had. I said I'm optimistic after having watched this game. Do I feel the same way if we didn't just watch a game where we had no shots, period?
No, I wouldn't. I don't know if I can stand another game like that.
Yeah, but that got you a point. Right now, as results stand tonight, DC has fallen out of a playoff spot, which is not acceptable when 10 of 14 teams make it. And you're not going to be able to sit and bunker and get 1 point a game and hope it gets you into the playoffs.
Right, and I think the counterpoint to that is kind of what we were just talking about. Is like, giving players time to get into this formation, get into these tactics, bring in a couple folks who've been injured, bring them back into the fold. I don't know. It's tough. It's like, do you accumulate a couple points right now and you play the style of defend like hell for the whole season, sneak into the playoffs and lose? Or do you say, part of me with tonight is like, hey, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to take a couple lumps, but we're going to get good at attacking like this. And if we sneak into the playoffs, maybe we've got a shot at actually winning a game or two instead of
that requires
what we've done lately.
A long-term commitment to the head coach.
What
you're talking about, I completely agree. I'd rather. I don't care about losing the playoffs to Columbus again.
Olsen's not going to get fired this season.
No,
I
don't
haven't
think
seen
so.
anything that indicates that Olsen's going to get fired. So I feel like that's the conversation we just need to move forward with, and it's almost not worth talking about whether or not that's worth it. Well, it's just like, how do we move forward with him?
And I was just talking about this season, right? Like I think within the constructs of this season, if they continue to roll out a similar tactics that they did tonight.
But if you're going to practice the tactics for you got to keep the coach that's implementing that.
I almost wonder, like, whether or not this season, right, like we have so many players injured, we don't have a lot of depth, like the fan base is not going to appreciate this, but like what if we almost like consider this a wash and try new things and get the new players out there, and then we come out next season blazing, even if like not at the beginning of the season, because in MLS you don't really need to get good until towards the end of the season, but like I just wonder like what would we prefer? Would we prefer like figuring it out this season, and maybe that's not a long-term solution? I would prefer a more long-term solution.
So again, that's requiring that we do get it figured out. Like I understand, the idea of, hey, we're going to try something different, go out there. Again, this season is not a season where DC United is going to win their 5th cup.
But I wonder if you're trying to figure it out for this season and if you're trying to figure it out for next season, those are two very different things, right? Those are very different strategies. Those are very different ways that you're working the team and playing these games. So what do you guys think that the team should do?
Well, I think I've said for a while, especially since we were in Disney, I want them to commit to a style, commit to a formation, and play it to death. And you find out this season where your gaps are, and you go out and you get players that fit that role to succeed next year. I think that's how a lot of teams are being successful, particularly in this league. I mean, we don't have a lot of funds, right? Like, we're not going to go out and acquire a ton of good players. What we need to acquire is players that fit the system. We can't continue to try to build a system around the players we have, or nothing will ever be consistent.
But that's
year
my
to year.
argument, though, is that Ben Olsen for 10 years my question to everyone, I don't know whether or not it's right or wrong, but Ben Olsen for 10 years has been grit, and we're going to be defensive, and we're not going to get a lot of chances. We're not going to play pretty soccer, but we're going to like be the hardest working team out there. And you can a little bit argue, like, that's been our system, right? Like, for better or for worse, like, that has been it. And he has gotten players who can do that. He's gotten Russell, he's gotten Felipe, right? Which, like, a lot of people were mad at. Like, he has the players who are willing to do that right now, and a lot of them are injured, and you can't really plan for that, and we don't have the depth. You're right, we don't have the funds for it. So I'm like, I mean, you can't really account for injury, right? But it, like, sounds like that is kind of what's happening. It's just not going DC United's way.
Well, certainly luck has not been on this team's side this year. I mean, other than the goal that Sorga had at the last gasp at Red Bull Arena last week, that's it. Mostly everything's gone against us on the field with injuries. It's not been a good season by any means, and we certainly haven't had luck, but I don't know.
And part of that is, like, does Ben know that we're not going to get the funds? Has he been told we're not going to sign another Wayne Rooney caliber player, so you need to figure it out? Because that is specifically what he and the fan base was told while we were in RFK, right? He was told we're not signing players until we open the stadium, and then we did, and we signed Wayne Rooney, and it's unfortunate that he didn't stay, but now we're in a pandemic, right? And we don't have one of those billionaire owners, right? Like, Levian doesn't have the unlimited funds that some of the other teams have, so, like, what? I mean, it's unrealistic. Like, more so, like, what do we do with what we realistically have is what I'm asking.
No, I think that's a fair question. And along those lines, my favorite question just popped into the YouTube chat. If we fire Olsen, and I say this in any sport, any coach, if you fire the coach, do we have any names for people who would replace him? Is there a name that stands out as a real possibility?
It would be Ryan Martin the next day, and it wouldn't even be, there would be no search party. There would be there's no short list, I don't think, for replacements for O. If you want names, I can give you ones to dream about. Gallardo is coaching Boca still, I think. He's a great coach. Josh Wolf came up through us. We should have grabbed him instead of letting...
Pochettino's still unemployed, right?
Poach is not coming.
Josh Wolf hurt, though, that we didn't absorb him in.
Look, there's high-class managers. There's managers that make sense out there, but look, it's not going to happen.
But a lot of those coaches are also, like, expect the higher caliber, like, training facilities that are an hour and away, and they expect the higher caliber signings, and if that's just not what we're searching for, like, maybe it's a different argument that we need to be having.
I get what you're saying as far as, being under financial limitations. You're not a team that is able that is able to just blow it out when it comes to budget. But right now, Columbus is at the top of the league. Columbus is building a new stadium. We just got a new stadium.
Yep.
They're winning with what I believe is a similar resource profile for the folks they've got on their squad.
What happened to Columbus like 2 years ago? And they got new owners. The people that own the Cleveland Browns bought them, and so they have money, and they bought a really good number 10. Well, and now they're playing well.
I would argue that I think Black's right, though. I think they have a similar resource structure to us. I don't know that the Hassels have come in and invested millions in the team other than the new stadium. Like, on-field product, I don't think is much different.
they're a way better team.
Well, sure, but we're talking about investment, right?
I think I see it more at Columbus. Columbus is look, they had the coach that coaches the U.S. men's national team, and then they went out and got Caleb Porter, who has won an MLS Cup.
That was a big win for them.
Their number 10 is he's probably going to win MVP if Columbus keep like they do. They have the best American striker in the world right now, not named Josie Altidore, and you can take that for what it's worth. But Zardes is good in MLS.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a super club. They're not the LAs.
Sure.
They're not. But they're finding ways to work. And so, are you saying that maybe DC United could get to where Columbus is at? I mean, it's certainly a bigger market if they. There's a whole.
Well, yeah, that is a whole nother can of worms. I think DC United should expect to be ahead of Columbus in the standings, in the spending, in the fan base, in every metric. I love using metrics with Columbus. That felt a little dirty, and I didn't intend for it to.
You can say the same thing about Philly, too. We should be better than them, and we have
Absolutely.
Well,
good
if you want
discussion.
to talk about Philly, that absolutely comes down to our youth players, right? And that's a very different structure, is that Philly has a structure and a youth program, and DC has a pay-to-play.
I thought about this the other day. I think I would have rather had Bedoya than Wayne Rooney. I think it's indicative of where the franchises are at, and man, I hope the comment section lights on fire with that. Where did Wayne Rooney get us?
I disagree though, because if we expected to have Wayne Rooney for a long time, and I don't think that was necessarily Wayne Rooney's decision, right?
I think it was.
That was not the plan.
I think I absolutely
it was Colleen Rooney's decision.
We can. That's what was stated in the public. A lot of things are stated in public. I think Wayne Rooney was not happy with this team, just like a lot of players are not happy with this team. I mean, we had the two players in the pre-game press conference say that they weren't having fun playing soccer for us.
Well,
if you're Wayne Rooney and you can literally go anywhere you want in the world.
So hold on. I don't think that Assad and Fisher in the press conference came out and said that across the board they don't have fun playing soccer with DC United.
I think they said these past few games have been very difficult.
Yes, when you come out with no intent to score, that's not fun. And I think almost any soccer player or fan would agree with that, defender or not.
Yeah.
But that's very different than what you said about.
And that's also very different when you
what
have
was
a
the
bare
style
bones
before
team.
that?
But you have a very bare bones team right now.
Sam just said
right?
our style is gritting. This is our style. It's a little bit. But
our style's not park the
but
bus.
it's not as defensive
not
as
that.
it should be. We are very much more defensive right now because we don't have the caliber of player to go forward. And if Wayne Rooney had stayed, we'd be having a very different conversation right now. So
I think we would have had a lot more possession even in Orlando if Wayne Rooney had stayed. But again, there's just so many factors here. You talk about all the players that are out. You talked about what you expected from Flores and you didn't get, or at least you haven't gotten thus far.
And I think that's what makes this conversation hard, is that it's every single factor right now is going against us. It's not just that potentially Ben isn't the right coach, or these owners aren't right, or all the injuries are happening, or our tactics aren't right. It's all these things that are just coming together and making each other thing very difficult to talk about.
So I agree, and to an extent, you can change formations, you can change selection on the game day. You can't choose who gets injured or things like that. There are unforeseen things that you're reacting to, but you do still have to make an evaluation and say, hey, are we doing everything we can, and have we changed the things that we can control that might make it better? Again, tonight it looked like they lined up a team that was going out there and frankly was disappointing not to get a ball in the back of the net. Perhaps you still lose 2-1, but still plenty of opportunities to score a goal.
I think you could win 1-0. I think the two goals were we've agreed on this already on the show that those two goals were just stupid errors from young defenders.
I want to go back, and we're obviously all over the place tonight, which is
can we talk about the game?
Very emblematic of this team. I do. I want to go to the game, but before we go too far away from it, Sam, I want to just pull the thread a little bit more on something you said there, because you alluded to the fact that bringing in a manager of a much higher caliber might be frustrated by the fact that the training facility is going to be an hour away. Is that something you see? And the question really for everyone, I mean, we are on the cusp of a pretty awesome training facility out in Loudoun, at least from everything we've heard.
Yep.
It is out in Loudoun, which is very close to Dulles, by the way, which is the biggest airport in the area. But it is not close to downtown DC. It is not close to
I think that's fine. It's pretty commonplace in England, right?
Triangle.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of where I'm
is
going.
Is it commonplace in England?
It is.
Okay, because I think it's not in America. So
well, and that's the basis of my question, right? Do you really see that as a negative? not just for bringing a new coach, for players, for on-field product. I had never looked at it that way at all. I mean, I noticed that it wasn't in DC, but hell, it took this team forever to get a stadium in DC. So
Yeah.
I think they went where they could.
I don't know. I think that you look at other teams, and LAFC is coming to mind, is that they have like a very beautiful training facility. And obviously, like, we haven't seen all of what Loudoun is happening, right? Because it's like still kind of under construction, being created. But I mean, LAFC comes to mind. They have a very beautiful stadium. I think Atlanta's facilities are very close to their stadium, if I'm not mistaken.
25 minutes, yeah.
That's a lot closer than Loudoun. You
have to drive through Philly first.
No, you have to drive through DC traffic first. As the only person who lives here, you can drive from Loudoun. Basically, I can guarantee you that it's at least 45 minutes.
The team will not be headquartered in DC anymore. The front office will still be in DC. Well, maybe not even that.
And the stadium will be in DC. I think it is a negative, right? Like, I think it's not ideal. I wish that it had been in DC.
The cost of living for those players just got like divided by 5.
I mean, so take Paul Ariola, for example. I mean, he bought a house out in Ashburn.
Yeah, I think that's...
Which is still not as far as Loudoun, let's be clear.
I don't see...
It's further than Loudoun.
I don't see...
It's in a different kind of direction.
I don't see the facilities being a downside. I feel like that's potentially a downside if you're talking about the top level players. If you're trying to bring somebody over from Europe...
Are we not trying to bring them in, though?
No, we are not. We're picking up 31 veterans who scored 1 goal for the previous team.
It's better than it used to be. Let's be clear. Latu's not playing for this team anymore.
Well, and that's the struggle that we're seeing, for this team. Half the teams in the league, or less than half the teams in the league, are trying to go with the younger players. You saw in the CBA with the emphasis on young DPs. Do you go with that model of trying to get young guys and then sell them on, or do you go with the MLS 2.0, bringing in guys who are still able to contribute but have fewer miles left on their legs and coming in? I would say that if you're trying to attract somebody who's at the back end of the career, maybe they say they don't want to drive an hour into DC, but for the guys that I would rather see this team going in, the younger guys, as long as they've got a facility that is on par with the rest of the league, I think they're going to be fine. I don't really buy that we're losing out on opportunities.
I mean, we're lucky to have the stadium.
Hey, they're in the RFK parking lot right now, right? Yeah. So I mean, I would argue that anything that they can build out in Loudoun is going to be better than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's a negative at all.
Okay.
We're live here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken, and we did everything we could to not talk about what happened in this game tonight, but I think it's probably time to actually talk about the specifics in this game. But if you'd like to talk about the game or future aspirations of the Black and Red, you can call the show at 202-892-6328. That's 202-892-6DCU. And, of course, as always, interact with us in the YouTube chat or on Twitter. So tonight, obviously, early-ish goal. I don't have the app in front of me at the moment, but DC United, as we talked a lot about, they came out flying at the beginning. We saw a lot more, not only shots, plural, in that first half. We saw a couple on frame. 29th minute, just a disastrous set piece to give up. I don't think... Well, we looked and we said no one was marking really anyone there.
Yep.
And that was
very frustrating.
Aaron Long, who I think starts for the U.S. men's national team at center back. So, kind of an important guy to mark there. Almost went to the prim.
Who Kevin had, completely, juked out, a couple minutes beforehand, right on the other side of the field. So, it was very frustrating, especially coming after hearing all these press conferences about how important defense was to this team. He was wide open.
I mean, you would think that the mentality would bleed over, especially in a situation like that, on a set piece where they're coming at you. It's not a question of, okay, do I go forward? Do we come back? Do we try to build? It's very much they're attacking. This is how we need to line up. This is how we need to mark, and they didn't do it, and that's distressing.
You're right.
Because if you're talking about a team that's gritty and puts a man on you and makes you earn everything, to have him be that wide open to be able to slide afterwards on his chest in that disgusting celebration, it's very frustrating. And you saw that the team turned a bit after that as well. You had a little bit less attacking
as
momentum.
This team does.
It was very distressing to see that happen, because like you said, John, those first 20 minutes or so, this team had 65% of possession. They were looking to go forward, looking to have opportunities. It was encouraging.
Well, and you heard, I think you heard from Olsen at halftime, and you also heard from Frederick Briand in the postgame press conference a bit. That's just gonna eat at this locker room. Of everything that they did right tonight offensively. Again, didn't find the back of the net. Frustrating. They have a long way to go, but the defense has been the strong point, and that's a bad lapse, especially for a team that harps on that.
I need someone to step up though, because like nobody's perfect, and those things are going to happen, right? Like you can have the best defense in the league, and no one has ever gone perfect in this league, right? So like you're going to have mistakes happen, and you're going to have those goals get scored on. And I've said this about DC United for years, even with Wayne Rooney here, as we did not have somebody who could pick this team up on our back, and for everyone to lift their chins and like go back right at it and continue shoving it down the other team's throat and like continue with the play that had been.
Are you saying the team is missing its leader right now?
Who is its leader?
I think one William Hamid.
Well,
which we talked about a little bit during the game, and that was go ahead, John, pose your question, because that was my answer.
We'll shout to Press Start Entertainment here in the chat. His or her question first. Do you guys think Bill is ready to get back in the lineup? I think yes. He was on the bench tonight. I think fitness is there. I think Seitz got the start because of the way he's played.
I will say I think we're not in the practices, so we actually don't know. But I also will say that I think it's hard because he was not gone for that long to believe that he lost game fitness within that short amount of time. Like
I totally agree.
Like also, goalkeeper.
Yes, but that has been what has been cited.
Yep.
And Seitz has had great games, right? He kept us in this last game. I don't think either of these goals this game were his fault necessarily. I think that he had some really great saves. I also think that I don't see the YouTube chat right now, but I think that he also doesn't have the leadership that Bill Hamid has.
You
and
think
Bill Hamid
Chris Seitz is providing that?
No, that's what I'm saying is I don't think that Seitz has the leadership that Bill has, and I think that Bill demands a lot more of his defense. And while Seitz is making those really great saves and like those things that are keeping the team in, he's also not directing the defense in the way that Bill does.
And that's a significant challenge for a backup keeper coming into a situation.
Oh, absolutely.
No matter what's happening, we've heard it's fitness for Bill, and that's what's been keeping it out. Whatever the reason it is, the backup goalkeeper's job is to be ready to enter, play the game as they need to do, make saves. And for these last couple of games, he's done it. Look back to the Philly game, it did not go well. So, it's gone, up and down. But certainly today, I don't think either of those goals were on him. But we would like to have a guy who we think should be in the conversation for the U.S. men's national team, anchoring between the sticks.
Well, and we're also, as we've talked about, we're missing Steven Birnbaum back there as well. But the question that Sam alluded to that I asked and may very well have jinxed us if you believe in that was if...
I do. You did.
Isn't like the 25th-ish minute?
Yeah, this is right before disaster struck. If Seitz kept a clean sheet tonight, and I'll ask even without the clean sheet.
Because neither of those goals were his fault.
No, they weren't. Do you keep Seitz in there? I do think it's a different question coming off this loss and having the conversation we just had about perhaps Hamid injects some leadership. But I agree with you guys. I don't think those goals were Seitz's fault. So let's do the question as it lies right now. 2-0 loss tonight. Do you bring Hamid back?
So my answer is the same, because even during the game, I said my answer has little to do with this team and this performance right now. And that was, I think, after the first goal. But I say that aside from Seitz's performance tonight, he's not the leader that Bill is. And especially when you don't have Steven in, and I would argue that it's on Briand then to pick it up and command this defense and let them know where they need to be, but he wasn't doing it tonight. So maybe if Steven's back, you can argue that Seitz can get a couple more shouts, but I think that it was a topic of conversation in Florida, right? About the fact that you could hear Bill throughout the broadcast, right? Even when they started piping in fan noise for some of them. Yeah, you could absolutely hear exactly what he was telling his defense to do. And I think that this team needs that a little bit. So just for that reason alone, I think Seitz skill-wise is totally in it. And I would I have all the confidence in him, but I think that Bill brings that additional leadership, which we absolutely need. Joshua.
I think Bill Hamid is an MLS version, MLS scope generational talent. He's an incredible athlete, an incredible goalkeeper. There's who in MLS would bench Bill Hamid? Maybe Stephen Fry when he's good, but I mean that's about the list is very short, and Chris Seitz is not on it. You bring Bill back if his head is in the right spot, because I don't doubt his fitness. I
Yeah.
I doubt where his head's at right now, and I completely understand if something personal happened or if he's sick and tired of Benny ball. Look, Bill's great. Put him in the game.
Yeah, and I'm right there with y'all. If Bill is ready to go on game day, you put Bill in. If for some reason your assessment, coming in as a coaching staff, and you say, hey, Sites is just as good, then you need to find a different position or a different place for Bill to be and move forward Sites. But that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think the only counter argument I'd have to you guys, and I don't even know that you disagree. I think Ben made the right call tonight on giving Sites the start again, based on how well he played. That would have hurt a bit, coming off of those 2 games to then bench him just because your starting keeper's ready to come back. I think it does send a little bit of a message too. Again, we don't know all the specifics about why Bill is out. We're speculating. I tend to agree with you guys that it wasn't a fitness problem, but I do like the coach sending a message that, hey, you're by far and away the best keeper, but you don't get to play as soon as you're ready. Like, if the guy behind you is playing well, he's going to stay in because you earned the time.
And I love having a Chris Sites who we got a chance to see and has performed well for the most part. Like, Bill Hamid is not a guy who is going to be able to play every single game during the season, even though we'd love to see it. He's had knee troubles in the past. Things happen. I'm very happy to have a very serviceable MLS replacement level backup as Chris Sites, but I also haven't seen him do some of the amazing things that we've seen Bill Hamid be capable of, and you don't get that if Bill's not on the field.
And we had a whole long conversation last episode, right, about like, what if Bill is being traded? What if he's leaving DC United? So I don't, whether or not that's actually in the conversation, that was so much speculation by us. But I think exactly to John's point that it's super valuable even when he's ready to say that, like, you're not a guaranteed spot. No one on this team is a guaranteed spot. Like, you might be better, but Sites is like performing in these games right now at the same caliber as you are. And in practices, he's like doing the same stuff as you are. So I'm going to keep him in there until I have a reason to bring him out. And I think that there's absolutely value in that, because not only does it send a message to Bill, but it sends a message to the entire team that, like, when we do have depth and they're like, are people who can play the positions.
Well, the best teams have depth and they have competition for every spot, right?
And that's what makes the team better.
Yeah,
absolutely. So even like when like Birnbaum and Paul and Russell are able to come back, like maybe they're not in their first game back. Like I would personally love to see that, but say we have an upswing, like maybe it's not guaranteed for them.
Is goalkeeper the position that DC is deepest at right now?
I think so. I think they're deeper than most MLS teams.
Yeah. Oh, I would agree with that.
Given
Joshua.
the players that are injured, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think we all thought, defensive mid was the deepest, and now it's like one of the thinnest. But speaking of which, Abu had a great game tonight.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to mention that was, I will get to that section later, but yeah.
I just, he's someone who stepped in, and he played a little less defensive tonight, but still, I thought he played super well.
I had to check a couple times because I couldn't tell if he was playing a 6 or an 8. I thought he was just a 6 when he came, but he did really well at possessing the ball and moving it forward. We had Paredes at the 10, and so that was unique, and I'm sure we'll get to that next or later in the show, but I thought Abu did a really, really good job.
Yeah, and his ball into Gressel, was one of our best opportunities.
Yeah.
Again, that ball probably should have found the back of the net. Yeah. And you love seeing that kind of service coming from across the field. Like, I have no complaints with Abu's performance today.
I still think this team, to that point, remains a goal or two from the run of play away from just a world of confidence boost that they have not been able to find. The Sorga goal obviously was awesome. It was at the very end of a game, and it was off a set piece. So, one of the comments here again, just kind of calling out that other leader from the team that's missing is Paul Arriola, out on the field, right? And I think that between missing a couple leaders, but also, competition at these positions, when you talk about the players that are injured, and we've talked a bit about that, it's kind of exciting, the prospect of just the battles at each position that DC United should be seeing with a full, healthy roster right now. I don't know. I guess that's the little bit of optimism I'm clinging to.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that we hope for next year. I mean, who knows what's going to happen between now and then, but coming into the season, we looked at it and said, hey, we've got a lot of new faces, but if everyone gets integrated well, this is a team that we expect to be competing to be, hosting a home playoff game and, potentially making it a run, and we looked like it, had some options going forward. The team hasn't figured out how to make that happen stylistically in the absence of, guys who are great. Like, it's very hard to replace a guy like Paul Arriola. If the U.S. men's team is playing right now, they would have trouble replacing him too. But they're not.
So we've got a couple of rapid fire questions from the Twitter machine that we'll do real quick, and then let's go ahead and award that man of the match. But Greg Olson sent us in 3 questions. So one, are DC United more dangerous from set pieces with Gressel or Felipe over the ball?
I have been
neither.
Disappointed.
We don't have we scored from a header this season? No, I don't think so.
I think Fred had one in the first game.
Yeah, that was off a deflection, and I think it hit the goalkeeper. Then it hit Fred's head.
Yeah,
or Fred's.
And Russell may have had one too.
The first goal,
yeah.
But since then,
I think they made a point on the broadcast tonight about how Gressel's balls coming in tend to be kind of floating, not really a laser to a spot, which worked great when he had Joseph Martinez jumping over everyone in the world to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah,
this team hasn't shown that we have the target guys there, and you saw some play from the strikers today, particularly from Rivas, holding the ball up like a target striker is expected to. But as far as being the guy who out jumps everyone, I'm going to have the ball and it's going to end up in the back of the net, you haven't seen that. So I don't know if that needs to be a change in style. I still like seeing Gressel's.
They're pretty
balls. They're great. But it's for me it's Gressel.
I have actually been a little bit disappointed in Gressel's service. I think that he has had some opportunities, but I think that he's wasted a lot of them, and I'm really frustrated when corner kicks go way over, when free kicks go way over, and not just looking at this game, but looking at a lot of the games. I feel like I expected more from him than he's been able to provide, and maybe that is in Atlanta, he also had those bad balls, but Joseph Martinez was able to capitalize on enough of them that you didn't really notice.
In Atlanta, they weren't making their right back take free kicks and corner kicks and all that. They weren't relying on it because they had a number 10 to do that. And we don't. We are relying on Gressel to whip those in.
So your argument is that Gressel shouldn't be whipping those in?
No, he should. He's a great crosser of the ball, but I don't want to see him taking those.
No, so your argument is that he shouldn't be taking them?
But yeah. To your point, he possibly shouldn't be taking them because we need somebody who specializes in doing that.
I would, yeah, we need someone who does that.
So I don't think I've been to the specific question. Are we more dangerous with either one? No, I don't think we are. I think they're both fine. I think we could and should be successful with both of them doing it. I don't think you necessarily need to go out to get somebody specifically better at that. I think we need to get better at hitting the ball, and I'd love to see more of that out of Donovan Pines, particularly because he's huge, right? But that's particularly on set pieces, right? Let's talk a little bit here. A couple questions kind of line up together. What makes Kamara's starting spot untouchable? I don't know that it is. In my mind, I think we've seen that it is. I think we've seen Segura start there. I think we're going to see Rivas get more time there. So I don't know that it is. What do you guys think?
I would completely agree. I think that we are going to see Rivas more there. I think we chatted a little bit during the week. Was it this week? I don't know. Time is lost on me. But that DC United traded another international spot, so that's right. Have more international, or we have more international players than we have international spots. And kind of what we had potentially theorized is that. When Flores is able to come back, maybe Segura goes to Loudon, which we heard. Sorga. Yes, I'm sorry. That's what I was thinking of. Sorga, which we heard a little bit in the pregame press conference, as DC Ben Olsen said that potentially he could use a little bit more experience in a team like Loudon. But we have seen Sorga in that spot, and we have seen Kamara lose it, and I think that it's not promised to Kamara at all.
I don't think we have a better player. Oh man, and he's not even playing well, and that's the problem. I think right now we're not scoring goals. We scored one goal in the past 3 games, right? Kamara, statistically and from history, is the best striker we have on the team. and he's not good enough right now. But
yeah, I thought Rivas was the best of the three tonight, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Kamara hasn't shown it, and I think all of us are still hopeful that he finds a way to do it. I think there were chances today where it might have happened, but it didn't. And at some point, you do have to start asking the question of, if it hasn't happened yet, is it going to happen? I think that, particularly looking into the offseason, Sam keeps talking about COVID transfer market, but you do have to look and see if there is an option to find some goals, because right now it's not working for Kamara. Now, I hope I eat my words in the next 12 games or so and he comes out on fire, but at some point this team has to find somebody who can put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, so final question here. I'll happily take the bait because it'll lead very nicely into the man of the match segment. Odd question about, was Kamara signed to be a backup for Rooney or become a starter? Forgetting a timeline, but do we really need a starting caliber in number 10? A couple things going on there. I think Michael Black, you said it straight in the chat there. I think he came in right after Rooney announced he was leaving, or right around there. But I think we could have found our starting caliber 10 tonight. I was very impressed with Kevin Paredes' performance tonight. I thought he played great in the center of the park. I said to you guys, it reminded me of some of the better Lucho days, which were a long time ago. But he was getting fouled quite a bit, and he was creating some chances. Kid's still very young. He's my man of the match tonight. I can't give it to him every week like some people on the show, Sam. But I was impressed with Kevin tonight.
Do you know what? If we're just going to roll right into that, I thought about that today. And it's, I think I keep awarding it to Kevin because he is the only person who keeps exceeding my expectations. Is that, like, maybe other people are having good games, and I think I gave it to Sites last week, or he's at least an honorable mention because he had a phenomenal game last week. But, like, Kevin is the only one because he's a teenager who is, like, coming up with these moves, and he's taking these people on, and he's, like, I don't know, just coming in with this confidence and this creativity that the rest of the team is just lacking right now. And you don't expect that from a kid. But he's bringing it, and he's like kind of talking the talk behind the scenes, which we experienced during the quarantine, but then he's like walking the walk also. So I would completely agree, because he's the only one who every time I look at it and I'm like, I'm impressed with you tonight. Like, maybe everyone else has had like a decent game, and I wouldn't say that this game by any means, but like of the other players who had like maybe a decent game, Kevin is consistently the only one every single game that I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that from you.
I see where you're coming from, and I do not have a problem with saying that Kevin had a great game tonight, and especially in the 10 role. But if it's a question of a player versus expectations, for me, a man of the match is a guy who really had a impact across the board, not just based on what you expect from him, but based on what everyone else was bringing that day. On a day like today, I could certainly see Kevin. For me, it was a boo. I agree with what the team said. He's a guy who has come in here, not a guy who was expected to start. Again, talking about expectations, but really did seem to create and was involved in several of the chances that this team managed to have, which we didn't have previously. So I think he's growing into the role. I also think we're seeing some chemistry develop with him and the other players the more he gets on the field. So I look forward to seeing him build on that, and hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to have an argument about a goal scorer moving forward. But for me, it's a boo.
Joshua?
Look, I don't want to make my man in that segment. I gave it away earlier, but I disagree about Paredes. I think he was a great number 8 playing as a number 10 today. We've played like 4 different 10s in the past few games. Assad, Flores before he was hurt, Ariel a little bit before. Like, it's been crazy. Gressel's even got a trend. I don't think we need to go buy a 10. Paredes is a good midfielder, and he's probably not developed enough to even put a number on him, whether he's 8, 6, or 9.
I would love to see Paredes playing under a 10, and maybe playing under Higuain is some of it. Like, I would love to see him.
I think he would have excelled. My point is, I don't think he was man of the match tonight because he was in the wrong position. He would do great underneath a legitimate number 10. I think who did play well is Abu. He was hands down the best player on the team, and made the most happen on the field. Paredes, like I said, played out of position, I think, and nothing really came of it. I need chance creation from the 10 spot. Abu did some chance creation from the 8 and was helping out on defense. I think it was a stellar game from him, and I didn't see it coming at all, and I'm still a little surprised.
Well, and the club officially did give it to Abu as well, so that was a good shout. It definitely was on my list as well. I don't know. I guess I'm of the mindset that if we can find the 10 inside the academy, inside the system, instead of going out and buying one, which I don't think we're gonna do.
That's what I'm hoping for. Sell them, that'd be even better.
That too.
We will. I mean, we sell everyone, but I don't think he's Brendan Harrison, who's also a teenager in this league who plays. Brendan does the same thing. He plays 8, and then sometimes he plays 10.
There are a lot of players who are not Brendan Harrison.
Yeah. But
one could argue all of them.
He has He has a very different system and players and everything around him, though. Like, I think it's a little bit hard to compare their production.
And hey, maybe, if Kevin was playing in the Philly system, it would be in a situation like that. But as it is, he is playing great for us, having come through our academy, and we certainly shouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. The fact that he went a full 90 tonight, which is kind of a rarity for him. Love seeing him develop, and hope for more good things from him.
Also, fingers crossed. It looked like he might have been a little injured. He was limping a little bit. He was kind of hanging on in his hamstring. We really noticed it after the third sub had already been made. But hoping that's nothing too severe, because Lord knows that we cannot afford any other injuries on this team.
Good Lord. Let's give a shout out quick to our friends at Across the Pond. They're probably just as excited as we are. The international soccer is back, or European soccer, obviously. The NFL is back tomorrow. I know they got a pretty cool deal going on. I think it's unlimited wings and beer for like $40 or something during the games.
Yeah, like per game, which is an incredible deal.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But if you aren't going out in public yet, eating indoors, eating outdoors, those types of things, you can always order. They do delivery through a couple of the services, and you can use the promo code podcast for 5% off your order for listening to us here on Tried and True. So guys, obviously I'm getting back from vacation. I missed some of the news this week. MLS Next being a big thing that they kicked off this week. What are the details? Anybody tracking it closer tonight?
They destroyed the U.S. Development Academy system. Well, U.S. Soccer did. MLS did not.
Right. It was a little bit sketchy, though.
MLS games.
That's right.
Everything.
And we talked about this a bit during the coronavirus break.
It was the day that U.S. Soccer was like, we're not doing our academies anymore. MLS was like, we are. So.
That's right. So they unveiled some cool graphics.
Cringe
and we'll see what comes of that. Yeah, it is rough.
Yeah, I admittedly don't know as much. I did read something along the lines of the fact that DC United is not completely making out on this deal because we are still a pay-to-play system. I don't remember exactly what it was that I read.
That's more in terms of getting paid for developing a player and then selling them on after coming through the system.
I think it's still worth mentioning that I don't love that DC United is still pay-to-play. Maybe that was just my bias.
It's terrible because if a player, so pipe dream, Paredes is a number 10, he gets sold for $20 million. If I think under normal rules at other places, if he gets sold on from that, the club that he came through academy still gets the.
You have to write that in the contract, but I think it's pretty standard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's FIFA rule.
It's a standard FIFA rule that MLS has ignored for a long time because they didn't want to pay money for it.
Yeah.
But they've now said that they're going to transfer into that. Now that's still for MLS academies. It's not a USSF wide rule, and some of the other clubs are not yet really wise to how that whole system works. But I think there's a lot of room for improvement in the U.S. youth development system, and we could do an entire show on that. But seeing the move this week to shift it is interesting in terms of the areas that already have MLS development clubs. It doesn't really do a whole lot for the areas that don't. Those are areas that you'd like to see better support from USSF, finding more pipelines to get more people into the game. But, all in all, that's what they're going to do moving forward. So let's hope for the best there.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams have really been able to capitalize on their youth. Obviously, Dallas, Toronto, Philly, even New Jersey are kind of clubs that just spring to mind off the bat on teams that have really been able to take advantage of that and not only cultivate players for their own MLS teams, but be able to sell those players on. And I'd love for DC United to start doing the same. We've seen that a little bit. Obviously, we saw that kind of with Ian Harkes.
Chris Durkin.
Chris Durkin, I'm sorry. Yes. That's definitely what I meant. Ian Harkes also obviously was like a DC United Legends kid. We loved seeing him also play for DC United. But yes, Chris Durkin was the one who kind of came through the youth. What?
I'm saying did he, as in did Ian Harkes play for DC United? But that's a separate issue.
All right. But I would love to see DC United kind of open that up and see a lot more of that and see that pay-to-play structure really change so we can kind of be open to all of the talent that's within the DMV area, because there is so much soccer talent within this area.
Yeah, they're all playing for Portland now. If you tournament.
Yeah, that's frustrating. You're looking ahead here. Obviously, Loudoun played tonight. It was a 1-1 draw, which was an interesting 1-1 draw. We managed to miss part of that game due to some technical difficulties on that front as
on
well.
Par.
Just on par for the night. But I saw that my boy Al-Mustafa leveled it, and they got a 1-1 draw after going down to 10 men in like the 10th minute on 2 yellow cards. The USL's bananas. They play again against Philly 2 on Wednesday night. And, of course, the Spirit with a win earlier today, 2-1, and they play Chicago again on Saturday.
Yeah, and before we get to the next DC United, I'm sorry this isn't in the show notes, but I would like to point out, we haven't talked about this a whole lot, but September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
See your ribbon.
Yeah, for all of you watching, I've got my little ribbon that I've been wearing all of September. And if you tweet, so you can tweet your message of hope to inspire patients during their fight, so to inspire all the kids who are fighting cancer right now. And if you tweet that with the hashtag Kick Childhood Cancer, then Continental Tire will donate $25 to fund cancer research.
Sweet.
And I believe that's up to a max. I can't remember exactly what that amount is, but obviously $25 is a huge amount. And if you can do something just as simple as tweeting, like, keep it going, like, you know, you're doing great. You know, I personally know a kid who's fighting childhood cancer, and it's absolutely heartbreaking, but kids are just like, they're extraordinary, right? And their flexibility and their ability to just be able to be positive and really just fight through anything. It's phenomenal. So anything that any of us can do, and if it's something as easy as tweeting something and then $25 goes towards research, that's amazing. So we're definitely going to do it from the account, hopefully from our personal accounts, and I'd encourage everyone to go ahead and do that a couple times this month. Yeah,
that's awesome. Shout. And of course, just wrapping things up here, DC United schedule part, let's see, the original schedule, Florida. So this is part 4, I think.
I guess
right?
so, technically.
They just labeled it rest of September.
Yeah. And not even the rest of the season. Still having headaches with the Canadian teams. But they play Toronto next Saturday. So we'll be doing this again on a Saturday, which is nice. And then we've got a midweek against Nashville, which we'll probably be up late for. And then New England rounds out the month. And I think that's on a Sunday, which I'm not at all annoyed about with the NFL being back, but we'll get through it. But yeah, that's what the rest of the month looks like. So what do we miss? What do we screw up?
No goals.
Yeah, we
missed the net.
Oh, man. I think this game, if anything, is like the most that we can build off of in the stretch of games that we've recently seen. So hopefully we're able to do that and we continue pushing forward and creating those chances and then just finishing some of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you had a game like the Philly game or even the NYCFC game last week, you know, going into another week, building up, I would feel a lot different. You know, this time we had chances going forward, you had opportunities. And again, a big shout out to the MLS for getting, you know, protocols in place that allows these teams to continue to play.
Yeah.
You know, we're so happy to have games back. Apparently there haven't been major COVID issues. Players have been taking it seriously and doing what they can to stay on the field, and I think we're all the richer for it.
Yeah, and fingers crossed, we've been hearing that Steven Birnbaum has been close for a little bit while. Russell Knaus hopefully is also getting back into the lineup pretty soon. We've heard potentially Paul Arriola by the end of the season, so just fingers crossed. Obviously the best for all their recoveries, not trying to rush anything as if I have a say in it, but hopefully we're able to see them soon, and this is a little bit of a different conversation.
That late playoff push, maybe even going somewhere in the playoffs. Josh was giving me the look like he doesn't want to hear it anymore.
We don't have roster spots for all our guys, so maybe.
Joshua and Sam have been asking for this for a while, so maybe we'll give the team a little luck. The song's called Run to Win. We'll give Bobby Wine the week off, and we'll see you guys next weekend here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken.